All right, so we're getting LinkedIn errors. We're not live on LinkedIn for some reason.
Hmm.
LinkedIn. Oh, now we're live on LinkedIn. There you go.
Hi, LinkedIn.
Here it goes. Right. This is live life, and sometimes I'm better at it than others. And today's one of those days I'm just not. So here's another episode of the KEW Exchange, where knowledge through experience becomes wisdom. My guest is Tiffany Castango. Oh my gosh,
It's Daniel.
It's Tiffany. It's Tiffany,
It's
and we're
Tiffany.
gonna we're gonna talk about this long, drawn out title, leaning into your confidence and finding your voice. That's a big one, right? Because I always had a voice when I had no confidence. So now that I'm quasi finding my confidence, which also in turn, for some reason, has a way of shutting my empathy off. I'm great at one on one, but when I'm going on a mass scale or going out to the masses or um, for some reason it disconnects my empathy. I have noticed that over the last few days through a lot of reflection. I don't know, a lot of downtime, um, literally down and just quiet time to reflect on a few things. So tell the world a little bit about yourself now that I just rambled again, because I do that.
No, not at all. So I am Tiffany Castango, as we have covered. And today I'm casual, but I'm wearing a shirt that I felt like was appropriate for this occasion. It says strong women, know them, be them, raise them, because I'm very passionate about women. And that's one of the reasons that I want to talk about our long drawn out title. But apart from that, I am CEO and founder of SEPHR, which is an acronym for Cultivating the Evolution of Professional HR. That I love my craft. I own my craft. I've been doing HR for 13 years, and now I get to do that to help small business, medium-sized enterprises, startups, nonprofits, and really helping build their infrastructure, strong teams, and cultures. And that's a whole lot of fun.
It's interesting, right? Because walking into that environment, I'm sure you run into a lot of lack of confidence, a lot of overconfidence, and a lot of voices being muted, right, or being not heard. Hey, Darren, good to see you this morning. Um, it's so okay. So let's go a little bit into the topic, right? So leaning into your confidence. What does that mean to you?
It means being who you were meant to be, who you were made to be. And I think a lot of us fight that. We fight it because of fear of people thinking we're overconfident or not having the confidence, or maybe there's some imposter syndrome kicking in. To me, it means being who you are authentically. I know a lot of people don't like that word, but I still use it because it means being sincere and loving yourself enough to come with all who you are to the workplace, to your relationships, to everything, and being okay with not being for everyone. I know that I'm not for everyone, and I'm okay with that. So,
See, for me, when I really look at it, like leaning into my confidence, it was always a worth issue, right? I never thought I was worth it. It wasn't a question of can I do it? Am I able to do it? Am I this? It's am I really worth everything that I'm here to do, right? Am I that person? Can I step into that and truly believe in it and live it, and feel confident within that? And I'm still not fully there. I mean, it's a work in progress, right? And I'm working towards it daily. I still have my downtimes, like I did have this weekend, which was horrendous for me. Probably the lowest moment in the last 35 years of my life. Saturday was horrendous, and I've talked about it a few times. And it's okay, right? Like that's growth, is sitting in those moments and isolating yourself into them and allowing yourself to feel it, right? And I'm finally comfortable enough in my own skin to do that. Um, it was a torturous weekend, um, but I know that I'm coming through the other side now slowly, and I'm little by little getting my confidence. um, a little bit of self doubt, but I'm getting the confidence in coming through it, right? So when you look at that, right? So let's look at your professional side, right? We can go, hey, Bill.
hi,
Um,
Bill.
we can go,
Bradford.
yes, Mr. Bradford. Wonder where he's traveling to this week. I think he's back no, I think he's back on the road again, which means he travels every week.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he talked about it a few different lives ago. So when you're walking into a workplace, I mean, it's pretty easy. Like if you're somebody like me who's come from no confidence, it's easy to figure out who doesn't have confidence, right? So how do you look to help them gain their confidence so that they're willing to take that step for themselves?
Yeah, I think it's first figuring out if they are willing to, because you have to be willing to do that. It is tough work, as you've already identified. It's not always comfortable to sit with yourself. And I think a lot of us during this pandemic have had more time with ourselves than maybe we'd like, or discovered some things about ourselves that we didn't know. So I would say that willingness is the first step. And I like to ask a lot of a lot of people hear me say a lot, curious questions. Just like that discovery process is really important to know like where they are on their journey. You have to meet people where they're at. And so for me, that's a very helpful process, and just understanding what they want out of the situation. If I'm working with somebody one-on-one, like what are your outcomes? I can't just like assume they want, and you can't push people before they're ready because that can have the opposite effect. So those are like a few top things that come to mind.
I've definitely learned from that because I've pushed many people that weren't ready yet. Um, and
Me too.
it wasn't intentional, right? It was because I see the best in people and I really just want to help them be there. And unfortunately, when they're not ready, it puts them into this suffocating process, right? To where they feel like nothing they can do is right because they're not living up to whatever it could be. So in a case like that, how do you handle that, right? Because when you see somebody that's hurting and you want to see and you see the best in them and you want to see, you want to help them get there. How do you evaluate what steps to take with them? Or how do you
I
even
think,
figure out if they're ready or not? I mean, that's a good question because I really have no clue.
yeah, for me, it really is. I'm a curious being to begin with. And so, again, when we talk about like not being right for everybody, some people get really annoyed by a lot of questions and they just want you to problem solve for them. But that the part of leaning into your confidence, finding your voice, of really that growth is the uncomfortable piece of like, yes, we're going to ask some questions and they're not always going to be comfortable for you. And I'm going to comfortably push you to be better, because there's a couple people I'm working with now, and I feel like I haven't done a whole lot, but for them, it means the world because I've asked the right questions, and they're like, well, I don't know if I can do this if they're looking for another job, and I'm helping them with some career development and coaching, and they're like, well, I don't know if I can get there. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Did you hear what you just said to me? Like, here's what I saw. So it's me kind of sharing back to them what I observed, because it's so hard to be critical, or it's so easy to be critical on ourselves, and someone else outside the situation might see it completely different. And so it's sometimes people just need validation. Like, am I on the right track? And in terms of assessing readiness, some of that is like assessing how confident they seem, or kind of talking through some exercises or doing role play with people just to see, where they're at on their journey. That's really important to the process.
So just so you know, my camera's at the top of my laptop, and I keep looking down to look at you, and my eyes are wandering. I'm all over the place here. Like,
Oh, I can't tell if that helps.
that's all right. I just look a little cross-eyed and slanted at times. It's okay.
You're good.
I'm
You're
all with it.
good.
I think the
Felicia's
conversation got too serious for me. Hey, Felicia. It's like I look at it, right, and I see the best in everyone, and I always have the best of intentions, and sometimes they just come across the wrong way. And I'm never critical or judgmental. I'm just very blunt and honest. And sometimes, being blunt and honest comes across the wrong way also, right? Like,
Mhm.
and it's challenging because that's just who I am as a person. It doesn't mean I don't love somebody. I don't care. I'm not empathetic because I'm a tremendous empath or
You
empath,
are.
and like but I can't always express it properly because I'm just so blunt, and I think part of it is because I was so emotionally detached from everything for my whole life that I'm still trying to figure out how to integrate my empathy back into how I communicate with people. and this is a really big thing that I'm working on and I do it live because that's just, that's how I work, right? Like, I just don't care. I just do it live for the world to see, right? Like,
I
this
love it.
is where I'm at. Um, I hide nothing. So I'm as transparent as they come. It's funny because, like, I can walk into a room and pretty much tell you where everybody's at right away. My intuition will guide me to who to speak to. And I follow that, but sometimes it still guides me wrong because they're still not ready, and I overwhelm, right? I do this shock and awe thing sometimes, and it's a little overwhelming to people at times. Not everybody, right? Like, I mean, our conversations have been great, and I'm pretty sure I've shocked you at different moments, but it's never been a kickback because you're at a different place and probably ready, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, I guess I've just got to gauge it better, right? And I've got to get a little bit more understanding of myself in the process. That's probably what part of this weekend was this huge self-evaluation. It led me down some really super dark paths that I've never gone down before, and put me into some really deep, deep holes. And I was truly isolated. Like, I mean, my kids were with their mother for the 10 hours, and like, I just sat here and it brought me down to the darkest I think I've ever been. It was a very difficult day, but I came through, right? And I found my way out of it, thank God, because, there's always worse extremes. So when you're looking at people and you walk into the rooms, like, when you talk to when you're asking your questions, right? Where do you get started? I'm just curious. Like, I really want to hear this. I mean, I want the world to hear it too, because obviously we're live. So, but where do you get started usually with somebody?
It really depends on where they're at, and a lot of times it's just opening up with what they're looking for. So I talked before about like the outcomes, that what are their expectations. So I have to understand that to know, how we move through the journey and working together. And a lot of times the stories like what you just shared will inform kind of what those next steps are, like what were they feeling, and that I think is missing, especially in the professional space. A lot of times, like, we want to just put people into these boxes and we want to compartmentalize them, but we are whole beings, and with that comes our emotional self. And so for me, like, it's all about assessing the emotional state. If you shared what you just shared with me and I come bulldozing in and I'm just like, all right, well, we're going to get you a new job and this is what we're going to focus on, but right now, that's not what you need. So it's meeting people, doing kind of this needs assessment to see where that person's at right now, like mentally, emotionally, physically. Like, there are a lot of things you can see and observe just by listening, by looking at someone. And even though, people kind of hide behind this mask of, oh, well, we're all virtual now, you can't read body language. I wholeheartedly disagree. I have seen meetings go just completely wrong and people not being annoyed, and I'm like, that person wants to speak. How do you not see this? Like, we can't be in our own way and in our own ego so much that we're not even observing what's right there in front of us. That's missed opportunity to me. So it's really just like seeing where that person's at on their journey, like hearing them and seeing them for what's happening in the moment, and that gets missed way too many times.
See, and what's funny for me is, like, I can just hear someone's voice and tell you where they're at. I hear it in their tone of voice. I hear the words that come out of their mouth. Like, I've been struggling and it shows, and I know that, and I'm okay with that today because I'm self-aware and I admit it. I have nothing to hide. So, like, it's okay, right? And, like, I'm okay climbing back out of that, and I'm okay sharing with the world where I'm at because I'm just have nothing to hide, right? So for me, this is how I come across. Here's a question, right? Like, Bill made a statement that some people just need to hear something positive. So I agree with that, right? And I'm huge on affirming people in every way possible, reminding them of their greatness, even when they don't see it. But I also find that it becomes an enabling tactic after a period of time. Because if I constantly just point out what's great about them, then they don't have to do the work to try and get there. And I feel like there's times that it becomes so counterproductive for certain people in certain situations. And I did it with my soon-to-be ex-wife, God willing, very soon. And, 7 days. I did it right
But we're not counting.
Actually, it's 6 days because you can't count today. We're already in it.
Yeah.
I will literally be in the courtroom 6 days from today. Hopefully signing those papers and getting this done. But I did it for her. I've done it for so many people in my life because I'm really good at just boosting people up. But what I noticed is even that marriage over 8 years, I had down points. Like when my mother died, I kind of collapsed upon myself, right? And it brought a new level of emotional detachment for me because I was abused by her and I never resolved that within myself. So when I'm looking at it, at what point does it become enabling? When are you talking to a client, right? And you're telling them all these great things about themselves and you're helping them guide them towards a new career, a new industry, a new path, a new job, transition, whatever it is, right? Because this is going to be happening a lot now. But they're not doing the work to get themselves there.
Yeah, and I haven't thankfully had that yet with any clients, so to speak. Well, I have seen it with some pro bono work that I'm doing. So they're clients, it's just that a couple of them aren't paying clients. And I think that that's come back to that piece because that's important too. Because if you're not willing to put in the work, then we shouldn't be working together and we won't be working together, at least if I identify that up front. And thankfully, I don't have that issue with the clients I work with. But I think, there are times when I've worked in organizations and people aren't willing to put in the work. They want you to give them the answer, or they're used to you being like Susie Sunshine positivity, and you have to deliver a tough message. And then I've experienced where people think that I'm this whole different person or that I'm a terrible person because now I'm not smiling when I'm delivering. No, this isn't a smiling situation. So there's absolute room for positivity. That's my top strength in relationship building. But at the same time, I'm not doing my job effectively and I'm not being a good friend or a family member if I enable you. And I've been through those situations. I've been codependent with people. It's not a good look. And eventually, the only person that's being harmed by that is you. They gain all of this, you tell me what I want to hear. You're very positive. But then you never make them do the work and they don't get better. So and I've worked with some people. I just recorded a video the other day about this where you have a lot of people coming at you when you're in HR or when you're a consultant, an entrepreneur, and everybody wants something for free. Not everybody, obviously that's not fair, but a lot of people want something for free. And that's cool. I do pro bono work too, but what frustrates me beyond belief is you deem that just because it's free, that you don't have to work or that my time is not quite as valuable. And that's when enabling can go wrong. Because if you thought that I was about to tell you whatever, just dish out stuff just because it's free, wrong. I'm still going to make you work. And I expect an update too, because you're getting it for free.
Well, they should work harder, right? Because
they should work harder.
The theory is when somebody is giving you their service for free and they're giving you their time, their expertise, their energy, you should be absorbing that so much more because that is a gift from the universe.
Yes.
That is truly a blessing that most people never get an opportunity for.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you need to look at those and truly make the most of them. And hi, Felicia. Yes, no more hiding. I agree with you 100%. It's funny because I look at this and the direction the world's going and the direction that employment's going, and there's so many changes coming over the next 5 years. It's going to be ridiculously difficult, right? AI, robots, retail industry disappearing completely. I mean, there's going to be 50, 60 million people at work, right? That are going to have to transition into something with more EQ, more creative thinking, critical thinking that AI and robots can't do.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're sitting here stuck in this box and we want to know how we can transition from a manager at a retail location to something, I mean, anything, right? Where there's critical thinking, where there's problem solving, where there's creative problem solving, right? Because AI can do problem solving, but creative problem solving where you're putting human touch on it is a whole different level. And that's a differentiator between humans and AI.
Mm-hmm.
It's also something that's not very quantitative when you're in the workplace traditionally.
Right.
Until it's missing, right? You don't notice until it's gone. So when you're working with people, how do you help them to identify their differentiators, right? So we're
Mhm.
going to just showcase you this episode because I'm good at this. Maybe I'll even be maybe I'll even be the sacrificial lamb for you. But how do you like quantify the intangibles? Because at the end of the day, that's the only difference between us robots and AI, right? Is the intangibles, the humanness that we carry with us. Because most other things are going to be replaced.
Yeah, so sorry, my husband was like knocking at the door, and I'm like, pretty sure this is live, right? Like,
More coffee. The
can't,
answer is
yeah.
more coffee. The answer is more
Yeah.
coffee. Always more coffee.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so differentiators. I think that if you are, if I'm identifying that someone has a particular expertise or a specific skill or something kind of like I call this your shine. And so it's maximizing your shine. So what makes you stand out from other people? And not everyone always realizes what that is for them. And so sometimes I have to help pull that out for people. Um, a lot of times I see with new managers, for instance, that they don't have the confidence or they've never done this before, right? They've maybe moved from a technical skill into now they're in charge of people and they're feeling very uncertain. And hello, the world right now is uncertain. So I think that just adds, that ambiguity. And if they're working with a lack of direction from the organization or their leaders, they're not going to be confident. If they have a boss who has historically not supported them or given them voice, that can cause, some additional uncertainty too. So that's the piece where I say, like, celebrate your difference, like, celebrate your voice, let it be known, let it be loud. In terms of what does differentiate you, that's the beauty of diversity, equity, inclusion. That is what makes us all different. That's what will innovate. And when you talked about that critical thinking piece, that's the differentiator right there too. None of us are the same. We're unique beings for a reason. And for me, I'm an empath as well, as you know. And so I'm able to be in those places too and gravitate towards people. And I can tell just by someone's voice how they're feeling. So it's looking at those types of things too, to identify when I'm working with someone or even before I work with them, what's different. I celebrate those differences.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably scared to go in public at this point after COVID's over because, I mean, granted, I'm in an isolated area of nowhere. When I go back to civilization, there's people everywhere.
It's so peoply out there.
My version of civilization, right? Because it is beautiful out here and there's a lot of qualities out here. It's just not my life. I mean, I like to be able to walk to Starbucks, not drive an hour and a half. So it's it's just a different world, right? Like, I mean, I want to go get good groceries, not Walmart groceries. It's just a different planet, right? So it's not my lifestyle. Like, I'm scared to go in public because my empathic abilities are so strong and I'm so in tune with them right now that the pain that's out there, the self-doubt, the questioning, these things, like, I'm really nervous to go in public again because before all this started, people were attracted to me at all times. Like, people would come up to me, tell me their life story, and I'd look at them and I'd be like, who are you? Like, what's your name? Like, first of all, now that I know your life, what's your name? Like, let's go back to the basics. And like, now it's going to be like amplified, right? Because not only have I spent the last year truly working on myself, getting more in tune with myself, in touch with my emotions, all those other fun crap things that I did, the Brene Brown work, all this crap. Like, I worked through so much of it and I'm still doing it daily. This weekend was a perfect example, right? It's just a never ending process. But like, I don't even know what to do in public anymore. Like, I don't know I'm not going to know what to do when I go into a crowded room. Now, granted, we might all be 6 feet apart, which means it will give me a little bit of breathing space, but that's not much for someone like me because, I walk into the room, I feel the energy from every single being in the room.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and I feel so much pain, and there's so many people silenced. You said that, and that is key. There are so many people, right? People look at equity, or they look at DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. They're so great at diversity now, right? Let's diversify. Just bring a bunch of people to the mix. but you're not including them in conversations, and you're not giving them equity at the table to allow them to voice and be a part. And that is the difference. And so many people feel the Brene Brown stuff, the blame, shames, and guilts from being silenced, right? Because that's an enormous part of it, right? We all feel like at times that we weren't heard. So it makes us react and act differently in scenarios that are basically go against us instead of for us. So how do you communicate with people that have not had a voice and help them to not only share their voice, but do it in a way that's positive for them, right? Because there's plenty of negative ways to act out, plenty of negative ways to get attention, plenty of negative ways to go chase whatever. But how do you channel that positive energy?
Yeah, I think it does come back to what they want. Like what you want might be different than what you're experiencing in the moment. And so I love identifying with people and going through this process. It's often messy because we do have to sit with ourselves and try to get to the place where we're not at the moment. Just like, where do you want to go? Because that alone gives people some hope and it gives people positivity. And they have kind of this accountability partner or someone who's going to work with them. And not that you're going to handhold, because it can't all be positive or I'm not doing my job. But it's being okay with that messiness too, and kind of, for me, I have to share those expectations on my side to say, this is how we're going to work together. I'm not always going to be pretty. You're probably not going to like me sometimes, but we're going to kind of co-create this process to get to where we need to be. And so really just like pulling that out of people and letting them come to their own conclusions. And I encourage them to ask questions, and I encourage them to be honest and candid and say if it's uncomfortable, because that's how the growth happens. And you talked about like being, for some people, being in a room full of people in and of itself is uncomfortable because that's not their thing, whereas I'm like, yay, more people to talk to, and then I want to rest after because I don't want to see y'all.
Right. Because it's the energy exchange.
Yeah, it's the energy. It's not everybody draws their energy the same. And so if I'm in a room full of people too, it's if some of those people are negative or I'm working a one-on-one, even for me to work with someone, they cannot be like, I'm not doing this, I'm resistant, I'm not bought in. They can't be super negative. And when I say negative, I mean they may not be as confident, but they can't be negative like, this just isn't going to work, or why are we even going to work together? You have to believe that at the end of the day, it can get better for you. And that might be a bumpy ride, but you have to believe that in order for us to get to that next step.
Darren agrees with both of us, actually. I don't know if you know.
Of course he does.
I don't know if you know Darren, but you need to know Darren.
A little bit, I know Darren.
Darren, reach out
well,
to Tiffany. Darren, reach out to Tiffany. You know Felicia?
I think I know Felicia a little bit too. I would say that neither of us know each other very well. It's an opportunity.
Yes, Felicia, reach out to Tiffany. She's amazing. You guys will get along great.
That saves you a connection.
This is how we do my let's make an intro quick now.
I love it.
We streamline the process. This is what my lives are for. It makes it we said we'll do. So we're good.
I love it.
Life is interesting, right? We all get kicked in the teeth. We all get thrown onto the ground. We all get beat up, and then we do it to ourselves. Mm-hmm. And then that's a whole nother level, right? Because how do we stop the self-perpetuating of beating the living crap out of ourselves? And that's the key. And then it comes down to self-compassion and, self-love and really finding our centered place to where we don't need outside validation, right? Mm-hmm. That chasing outside validation is so dangerous because you don't know what position you're going to put yourself in. Right. And what you're sacrificing of your core values to do so. Mm-hmm. So when you're talking to people, do you talk to them about their core values when aligning them for roles? Because I don't think that's something that gets talked about enough, core values, because I don't think most people understand what they are.
Yeah. Right? It's interesting you say that because people comment to me all the time that they love that I have my values like up front and center on my website, on my LinkedIn page, when we talk. It's very easy to identify those. And people tell me often, like, I see that playing out in your posts, I see it playing out here. And so that feedback comes to me different ways. And what I'm seeking from other people is the same. Like, well, you told me this, and it's not that I'm trying to be like hypercritical, right? But it's my job too to pick apart a little bit to say, if we're going to get to the next level, like you got to kind of get out of your own way. Like, here's what I'm seeing. And it doesn't really match where you're telling me that you're trying to go. So what's in the middle? What's the barrier? Like, what can we help kind of move out of the way? And that becomes like the messy work that people have to do when it relates to, I don't personally recruit in my business, but I do a lot around like that recruitment strategy and process and helping with the engagement and retention. All those parts play together as well as culture. So then I'm looking at, okay, what are the competencies? If you're going to hire someone for a new job, like what are the competencies you've identified? And does that even match what you're saying as an organization? Does that match the culture? Because we both know that sometimes we want this unicorn of an employee, and we're going to take that beautiful unicorn and we're going to put them into the middle of a mess, and they're not going to be able to shine because we've not set a realistic expectation. So those values that the person holds and that the organization holds are important because there should be some congruency, and that doesn't always happen. And that is when we ruin people from workplace experiences, when their voices aren't heard, when they're not confident, when you want what you want, but you're not giving on the other side of that equation.
But I also feel like not enough companies talk about their core values. Like what their mission purpose is. Like they talk about their mission statement, right? Like, and then if they're publicly traded, it's all about shareholders anyway. So who cares?
Yeah.
Right. We have this great mission, but it's really about the shareholders. But why don't more people on their resume put what their core values are, so that when they're interviewing, people can actually say this person aligns really well with what we're looking for. Right. It's not only about the results, because the results will feed itself if you put somebody in the right environment. Competency goes based on feeling comfortable and feeling heard and feeling seen. So when somebody feels those things, their level of production goes through the roof. So why isn't it that on resumes, the first thing that you should look at before white, black, pink, purple, male, female, transgender, bisexual, straight, gay, any of that crap that we throw in there, that we love to throw in there, we want to be equal, but we want to know exactly what you are too. Like before that crap, why don't you find out who the person is? Like, why isn't the first thing on an application, what are your core values? Why do they use algorithms to figure out if this person is going to work based on keywords? Like, who the hell cares?
I have very strong feelings about this.
But it makes no sense to me.
Yeah. It's because we often feel, well, past behavior is a predictor of future behavior, and we try so hard to engineer all that versus, and of course, there's, the effectiveness of it too, and the cost savings on the company side. We can't ignore that. But at the same time, I think that we're missing out. I know that we're missing out on great candidates because we're trying to fit them into the ATS and all the keywords, and everyone's trying to fit themselves into that. Like, what are the keywords I should be using? And it's become such a hyper focus versus like, this is who I am. This is how I'm going to show up. I'm going to be a great technical match for you, but this is also what I need from you, employer, in order to succeed, in order to be on a high performing team, and for you to get the best value out of me as an employee. And I think sometimes that those soft skills are just, people just, I don't know, they feel like it's a waste of time or, but to me, that's more important. That's how you really determine if you've got a match in culture and in person to the role and to the organization. If you really look into like, who is Tiffany as a person? What are the things that those keywords aren't telling me about Tiffany? There's a whole lot of, I am a very complex being. We all are, right? And some of us have even more layers to us than others, but you'll never discover that. And you don't get the benefit of knowing who I truly am and how I really would shine and what my potential past that is, because you shoved me into a few keywords.
Yes. And I feel like dating's the same thing. right? Like those dating sites, they're the exact same thing.
Mm.
Like I was talking to a friend because, like, I guess when this divorce is over and I go get settled and I'm up in Pennsylvania somewhere, I'm going to probably look at this dating apps, which I'm horrible at because I'm too honest, right? Like I'm not going to sit here and tell you something just to get your attention. I'm going to be the person that says, I'm not looking for many people. I'm looking for one or two that might actually fit what I really want. Mm-hmm. So here's about me, and this is where I stand, and this is what I'm looking for. I'm not going to be really good at dating because I don't play games. I don't believe in games. So I feel like the employment thing is the same way, though, right? Like it's this whole let's court, let's have 72 interviews, talk to the whole company before coming in the door. I feel like that could be cleaned up if you want to talk about efficiency, you want to talk about saving money, like save time.
Oh, hallelujah. Please. Nobody wants to go through all that. They're playing a game because they have to get your money. That's what it is.
And retention would go through the roof. Nobody would leave if they felt valued and if they felt like they were important to the core values of the company.
Yeah.
So when I look at this, yes, I'm criticizing the whole employment section, but that's fine.
It needs to be. That's why I do what I do. It needs to be shaken up. And there's people who do it great. Don't get me wrong, but woo, there are some opportunities.
But then you get to the final interview and it's like, what is this job even about anymore? Right? Like you don't even know what you're even interviewing for.
So true.
And then it's like, well, we're going to look to create a role for you. Oh, bullshit. You're just saying I don't fit into the box. You wanted to hear the great things about me, but you just could have said, interview number 1 instead of 70, whatever, that, I wasn't going to fit and save me hours of my life. I don't need you boosting my self-esteem. I need you getting me a job and getting paid to feed me, right? Like this is what this is about. So when I'm looking across the board, like why aren't there companies out there doing blind resumes and blind applications? And when I say that, I mean no sexual orientation, no sex, no sexual orientation, no married or single, no race, no any of that on an application. Why are companies not just looking for the best people?
I don't know why they're not. I mean, that's what it should be. You should, if you're looking for a fit to the role, and this is, I've seen this too, even working in organizations that we have crafted these job descriptions and these postings to a perfect person, to a profile. To a degree, I'm okay with a profile. You want to identify who is going to be a match, not who, as in, do they look like a woman? Are they a Latina? What is, but what are the skills and what are the competencies? What values, right, do they hold? What does that ideal profile look like? Not because there's this whole comparison game that I've seen that happens. Like, well, they don't have 10 years of experience like Susie over here. Susie just coasts in her job. Susie hates this job. I've talked to Susie, and that's what we're building against. Well, now you're setting that person who may come in, that new job incumbent, up to fail, and you're setting up the team to fail. You're setting up the organization to fail because you're anchoring on the wrong values. You're anchoring to the wrong thing. And so it's, yes, humans, we're just biased and we get in our own ways, and we can do things like having diverse hiring panels that can help support that process so that a team of your peers is going to see things differently if you're open to that. But sometimes hiring managers don't even know what they want. And I've seen that from when I was recruiting, they don't even know what they want. And I'm fighting with them about it. Like, are you sure they need this degree? Does this really make sense? It's just,
I don't even know if they know the job is, but I don't even know if they know the job that they're hiring for.
No.
Oh, I need to fill a role. Okay, let me keep my job and get somebody in here. Like, I mean, I feel like we're so backwards. We really are. And it goes back to the board of directors with men, women, black, white, pink, purple, Spanish, Latin, whatever you want to call it. Like, I don't understand. Why are we applauding companies for adding one woman onto the board of directors?
I don't know. I don't want to be your token. I work somewhere, large organization. They thought they were diverse because they were going to HBCUs. They thought they were diverse because, look, we have all these women in leadership, but they're all white women. And how about we put some men in there too? I benefit from having different men who support me. You are one of those in my circle. There's like, why do we always have to like try to fit things into our own definition of what it should look like? Just let it happen naturally. And then yesterday I was in a conversation where someone was like, this people were saying that, they want more leaders who are women or people of color. And the person was like, I'm looking around and they're all right here. So why aren't they in leadership? And I
Hmm.
was like, whoa, because I see it too all the time. I've been on the other side of it.
I just don't get it, right? And I feel like at some point it's got to go blind, right? Like it literally just has to go blind to where you're looking at resumes and there is no identifiers on there. There's no labels, no identifiers. And I really, and then there's also no different pay scales, right? Because if you're not identifying people, then you're not saying, oh, this is a woman, let me drop it 15%. Oh, this is a black woman, let me drop it another 10%. This person grew up in, impoverished area, let me drop it another 30% because they won't know the difference, right? Like I look at these things and there's all these judgments. Like, how do we get through this? How do we create a process and an example to where some company will literally, I'm going to say this, grow a set to where they'll literally just do this one day and they'll flip it on everyone, because I promise you the diversity will be there, the inclusion will be there, the equity will be there. It'll be heart-centric, like David Pushkin says. I know I'm really bad with comments. I'm reading the comments and commenting on them, but I'm not. I'm horrible at this. This is why Kelly got involved to begin with. But like I look at this and I just don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me. This isn't 1950. This isn't 1900. We have like I mean, you can go back further to the 1850s. There's still not. There's no. Well, I mean, I guess there is slavery in some kinds of extents, but different. But like, I just don't get it to me. Like, it doesn't make sense. And maybe I just don't fit in, and I'm okay with that too, because I don't. You give me a personality assessment test, I'm going to fail it every time, because I'm so busy overthinking it, trying to figure out what you want to hear in it for me to do a good job that I don't want anyway. That it's like, that's what I'm filling it out towards, and I fail it. Or I'll take it numerous times and my answers change a little bit because I didn't think I did right on the first time. Like, what are you consistently making me do these things for?
I have feelings on those too.
With a person, you don't need to do these stupid things. Okay, I'm going to go back and catch up on comments because now I'm just feeling overwhelmed and stressed. Hey, Dorothy.
Oh, we don't want that.
Dorothy's awesome.
It's because you care. It's because you're an empath. It's because your energy is drawn to doing the right thing, and we share that value. I think that some people don't want to do the right thing.
I always try to. My intent's always to do the right thing. So we can clarify that. Yes. Let's see. Yes, I did. No longer. Yes, one interview should be enough. Like, I just don't get it. David, I love you.
I have seen it go down now in COVID because they're like, oh, we can hire faster because it's self-serving on the other side. Why did it take a pandemic for us to figure out we don't need 7,000 interviews?
And they're still doing it. I promise you they are. I've seen people go through it.
Yeah. I've talked to people, which is even worse to me.
And they go through 7 or 8 of them, and it's like they get to the 7th or 8th, and then it's like, well, we're going to create a role for you.
Or you didn't get it. Great.
And how long is that going to take, creating a role? Oh, it could be next quarter, maybe the quarter after.
Yeah, I've seen people get burned by that too.
I just don't get it to me. It just doesn't make sense, right? Like, we can sit down and have a conversation with a human being and know if it's a fit or not, right? And again, it goes back to the core values. It goes back to culture. It goes back to creating the culture based on values. If you find somebody with aligned values, they're going to outproduce somebody who is more qualified that doesn't align, because you're going to breed that culture. They're going to grow that culture. Oh, so wait, what's the next point? Oh, look, we already talked about your voice. That's right. Okay. I forgot about the second half of the title.
I think we touched on both of them in some way.
We touched on a lot of it in different ways. So what is your sweet spot to work with people?
It's really those high growth, or when people are in a position that they are going to grow. So startups are my favorite because new founders even. So at the end of the month, I'm doing a talk to some new founders, and I'm so excited. We're going to talk about engagement, And we're going to talk about like retention of your team and the onboarding process and culture and all the things that I love to talk about. But it's, my ideal client is really the person who wants to do the right thing for their organization. They want to retain their team. They want to find ways to engage them in their work and in what makes them tick as a person. And so like building process, building that foundation is really the sweet spot for me. And then we take it from there as they begin to scale, and I get to move along with them and see the impact on their team, on the organization, how it grows. And that's really, really a cool thing. And then we start to talk about, all right, more with the performance and the engagement. Some people, they may just be doing their first policies and procedures, and we might be working on handbooks. And then we're later going to, start to continue to build the blocks and the foundation, or from the foundation of the house. And it's just really this cool co-creative process where we learn a lot about each other. I get to inspire, because the HR person that I'm not is like, here's what you need to do. Here's all the resources and go. Nope. That needs to be co-created, because I'm going to keep you just uncomfortable enough that you're learning and growing, because that's how your team's going to learn and grow too. So for me, that whole process, and even when people don't know what they don't know, when they're like, I know I need you, but please help me. I don't know where to even start. And that is fun for me. That's like, ooh, fresh clay, let's mold.
Well, that's the good ones, right? When you can build the foundation properly, because then it can grow that way until they get the one person that they eventually hire down the line that says, there's a much more efficient way to do this.
Yeah.
We can save you 3 cents on the bottom line. So we've got to change everything and destroy culture. I mean, that's what it feels like sometimes. Hi, Junette.
Sometimes it does. Hi, June.
And then we yes.
Yep. Same, Felicia, same. And it's, I said before that like we have to get to a place where we're not ruining people in the process. And I say that from a very personal space, because my why is driven around like not having people go through these toxic environments, not having their voices muted. I've dealt with boys clubs. I've dealt with people muting my voice. I've dealt with people just wanting me to be the token. And whether that's because I'm a woman or a Black woman or thereof. And the intent might have been there, but that's not a good space to be either. I've dealt with rooms where somebody's like shutting me down right in front of other people and being super condescending. And I've been through depression from job-induced depression. That's not a good time. Like, I want to leave this workplace the same way that I came in, not with destroyed mental health. And that is why I do what I do. And that's why I work for myself too, because too often it doesn't happen. Now, I've worked for some amazing bosses and amazing employers too, but that's not always the case for people. And those are some of the people I work with who are stuck, I work with organizations, but I also work with people, individuals. And so some of those people are stuck, or they're dealing with toxic situations. They don't know how to have the conversation. And so sometimes the solution is to leave, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's, what are your inputs and what are you doing? And maybe there's some self-discovery along the way to have you do things differently, because sometimes it is us, and we have to be okay with that too.
I think many times it was me, and I was okay walking away still. But because it just wasn't right for me, and I knew that also, right? Like, there's been, hey, Anna. Oh, I left a comment.
Hi, Anna.
Again, horrible with this stuff. So, like, it's
worthy of staying up there. Let's be honest. She's awesome. So too. Everyone's awesome.
So here's the thing, right? Like, there's been times in my life where I just needed to get a job. I know it wasn't a fit. I knew it wasn't what I wanted. I knew that it didn't want to be there, but I needed the income. I needed the health insurance, whatever it might have been. And it's like, I only last in those roles so long before I can't live with myself, because it goes against my values, right?
Yep.
And looking back, I see it clearly. At the time, it was just little by little chipping away at me, and I didn't acknowledge why. Now I see it so clearly. It was just not with my core values, right? And it was either business development, management, selling some crap that I didn't believe in, whatever it was. Like, I mean, I think, I sold septic tank cleaner at one point.
Ooh,
That was,
sexy.
that was an interesting conversation. I got to tell you, it was really a shitty job. Um, it,
This is why I love you.
but it was soulless because like I didn't have it in me, and I was like number one in sales the second week there, and it was like by the third week I'm like, who am I selling this to? Like literally, like where are these people that they're buying this crap? And it's like do they know that it's not good or is it good? And I did my own research, and because I can't just ignorance is bliss does not work for me at all. I overthink it literally to death. Like, so when I'm involved in something, no matter what it is, I overthink it to a point that I can't be against my core values. I just can't. It rips me to shreds over time. And it changes who I am in ways while I'm in it. Once I walk away from it, I find a newer version of myself that has more wounds, more learning experience, and more baseball bats to the head. But you know, it's like
But I'm glad you brought that up, like, because a lot of us have been through those situations where we've had the baseball bat to the head because you need to just toe the line, do what the organization wants you to do. And it's not about us. It was never about us. It was about them and getting their needs met. And we talk about aligning that to what a relationship is like. And employee, employer, that's a relationship. And so you can either do that right or you can do it wrong. And we come out of that sometimes with this mismatch because when you ask, why aren't we looking at core values? That's how we get to these situations because there is a mismatch and because you've been taking the time to discover who this person is. We don't care sometimes. But now they're ruined from the process because their values at some point don't align and there's friction. We start to push against that. Like, hold up. I thought that when I was coming into this situation, this is what I was told. And then you get met with just do the job. We don't care what you were told. And I've been in that situation, that very toxic situation of letting people just, have their way with these employees in terms of what needs to happen. And my values no longer match, or maybe they never match.
right.
And so then you come out of the other side of it, questioning yourself and what's wrong with me. And that's the work that I do with people too. Like, do not make the assumption that it's you. People come out thinking it's them. It's not you. It's that they don't deserve you, boo. That's what it is.
It is, and it's always a combination of both, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe you settled for something that didn't fit you.
Mm-hmm.
But you also misled and thought that it did fit you, right? Like this is right.
Yeah.
Like, we can't be ignorant to the fact that these companies want people in the doors. They want this wait list of people so that every time they feel like going and firing someone, they already have someone waiting, right? Because they need to fill that role. It's really a difficult situation. And as we go into these next, 3, 5, 10 years, and the pool of employers gets bigger, that it's going to get even more difficult. It really is. And I think at some point, people are going to start demanding that core values be part of this.
Mm-hmm.
So that they know when they're getting into something, there is something that they're comfortable in.
I think they already are. Mm-hmm.
I think people need to understand what their own core values are first.
Oh, yeah. And some don't.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it too. I mean, I didn't know what it was until 6 months ago. Like, I didn't even understand what they were. Like, I just had no clue. I mean, I was emotionally numb until 9 months ago. So, I mean, I just didn't get it, right? Like, it didn't make sense to me. I just knew that it didn't feel right, And like, this whole industry to me, like, it needs this enormous overhaul. And there's so many people around the world talking about it from different directions. But I don't understand why industry is just not getting on board. It just doesn't make sense to me. Like, there's organizations that are, don't get me wrong, there are.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's so many that are just sitting on the sidelines just saying, why? Like, why do I want to make a change? Our bottom line
Because they're comfortable. Yeah. There's comfort and fear tend to keep us complacent. But that's where that growth doesn't happen. That's inertia. And I think it's because people are like, well, if I do this, and this is why, with startups, they're used to being agile and moving. And and changing and trying something out and being experiential and moving to the next thing. But your more conservative or traditional organizations, yep, some of them will make changes too, but that can be a very scary thing for people. But you have to lean into it. It doesn't mean you have to do the whole thing right now. You could do a little bit of something. But that's people, they don't like to be in a place that makes them uncomfortable, but that's where growth happens.
Yeah, it does. It does. And it's a lot, right? Like there's a lot of transparency and honesty that needs to happen that doesn't happen.
That's it. That's the piece that's missing a lot of times. Like, well, if we tell the employees what's really going on, and of course you can't always, or timing and cadence makes a difference, right?
Show, so just put on the ship boots. You'll be okay.
But I've sat in those meetings and I've talked to a few of my professional colleagues too, where we sat in the meetings behind the closed doors, and it's like, wait a minute, we just came from this meeting where we put everything out on the table. We talked about all this stuff, and we're going to go and communicate to these employees something either completely different, or we're going to sell them a lie, or we're just not going to tell the full story. And I to this day don't understand. That's not how I work with my clients. Like, we're not doing that, or maybe we shouldn't work together. But now with the understanding again that sometimes it's about the timing of it, and we're going to tell them at some point. But I would really push back on people and encourage people to be honest and to be transparent. Because when your team they can't access you, you're not visible, there's no transparency, that is not an environment of trust. And they're not going to stay with you.
And I mean, every once in a while you'll find a crazy guy like me that like, tell me it's a shit show. I want to go change it. Like,
exactly.
Tell me the truth. Right? Like, give me the challenge because I'll go change it. You know, I have no problem implementing change and being the example by changing it from, doing it. Like, I'm fine with that.
Yeah. But I love a good mess sometimes.
Right. But just don't lie to me up front, because you lie to me up front, the trust is already gone.
Yep. I'm voting with my feet at that point, and I've done that. Like, hold on, you knew this wasn't what I was getting into, and now I know. So bye.
Well, and it goes back to the simplest things, because omitting is, lying also, right? You're not being transparent. So when I look at these companies, well, we didn't lie to you, we just didn't tell you. Why?
But if I did that on my application, that would be a problem. So why is it different for you?
And that's the thing, right? But I think that works with just on a human to human level also, right? I think people need to be more comfortable in their own skin and not worry about anybody else's reaction, and worry just about themselves and that they're secure in what they're doing. And we have to talk about it on a human level, because it's still humans that are doing those filling of the roles and writing the descriptions of the jobs and doing all this junk to make it sound all great and beautiful and perfect. And, day 2, they tell you, by the way, all holiday pay was canceled. Day 3, all vacation pay is gone. It's like, but you can't do that to people.
I see Anna saying psychological safety is so important. Yes, 100%. I know that Anna and June are doing it right, and they are out there helping people. I'm giving a plug for these ladies. They're amazing.
They have their clubhouse going, don't they? What is it, like every Wednesday or something, or Thursday?
I think so. I need to get in there one of these days. I just haven't been able to. It was on my list, though.
Anna, ping Tiffany. Come on, Anna.
Oh, Anna and I have spoken.
I know, but ping you in Clubhouse.
Oh, she probably has. They probably both have. I sometimes won't be in there for 2 or 3 days. And then there's days like yesterday where I was in there for probably a total of 4 hours off and on during the day. It just depends.
I went on to it last night, and I'm like looking at it. I'm like, wow, I got pinged a lot. And I'm clicking on them. It's like room closed, room closed, room closed, room closed.
I get pinged all the time. I'm like, I wasn't even here.
Yeah. It's every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern. There you go.
Yes. Go check out their room.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have notifications on for anything in my phone anymore. So
I don't either. Some stuff, but not really social media.
No. WhatsApp is about it, because my cell service here sucks. So it's really one of the ways that I have communication. But other than that, I mean, it's not even on for LinkedIn. I've cut back engagement on LinkedIn just because I got too much going on.
Yeah, it can be a distraction. And you feel like you have to be engaging, you have to be doing, because that's what it's about, right? And I love my LinkedIn community. I love Clubhouse, but you do have to, it's been like 9 months, I think, since I have had notifications on for any of my social media stuff. I do have it on Instagram right now and actually WhatsApp just because of my niece, but yeah, you got to balance it. It's beautiful, but you got to balance it. Never above your mental health. Never, ever, ever.
And that's the thing. Like, I mean, if you really want to know what's going on in my life, just watch any of my lives, right? Like, I'm live almost every day.
I'll just text you, like, what's up?
If you feel like it, right? Like, I mean, you know, this whole concept of direct communication is very difficult for people. Yeah. And it's not like my phone number is not everywhere. You can do a Google search and it'll tell you my phone number. It'll probably tell you my last 10 phone numbers if you really look.
Well, we don't always have to be that accessible to people either. And I think as humans, we're like wired for instant gratification. I was just talking to somebody about that the other day too. And we think that we always have to have access. Like somebody texts me, I have to text them back right away. Or I texted somebody, they need to like respond right away. And it's like, or somebody calls me, I hate talking on the phone. I do. Even when it's someone as lovely as you. We've done that, but like, I just don't like it. Text me. I talk to people all day long.
I hate text. I love talking.
People are like, why didn't you answer? I'm texting you because I am that person. It's probably a flaw, but that's who I am. I own it.
I mean, I have a cold, harsh personality to begin with, and then you put text in it where you can't express emotions, then it's a whole different thing, right? Like, then I just come across like this cold, mean, vicious person because I'm just telling you the truth. Like, you want to text, then here, let's text. And for me, I'm just better on the phone. I just like the phone. I enjoy it. My lifeblood. I don't know why.
You keep saying you're mean. I don't see you that way at all. So this is when you said like, how do I assess or how do I work with people? Like, I don't see you the way that you describe in that manner.
I think it depends on who's receiving it, and it depends where they're at that, and it depends where they're at that moment, right? It's like anything else. Sometimes people want blunt, direct things, and sometimes they want it all fluffy and sugar coated. The problem is, when it comes to me, you're usually just not getting sugar coated because I don't believe in it. I have pre-diabetes, so anything sugar coated is bad for me.
We need those people too. You should have people who are going to tell you the truth.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just me. So you want the truth, come to me. You want fluffy, go to find somebody else. It's not
maybe me, but sometimes I'm not going to be fluffy either.
I'm just direct. It's just who I am, and
I appreciate that.
It's not always accepted the right way, but I am direct. And I love me today, so that's what matters.
Yay, I love you too, and I love that you love you.
I didn't Saturday, but I love me today, so we're good. Saturday was a rough day. It happens. But I'm getting back in the swing of it, so.
Good. I'm glad.
You see Anna coming? Do you see it's coming?
Oh! Dare I ask?
I mean, hang on. Which are you? Surprise you?
I was feeling like misty when the first time we talked, but not like in a bad way.
DJ
in an existential way.
DJ will tell you that she had no interest in speaking to me because of the way that I come across.
Wow.
She had a conversation with me and saw me for what I was, but she had just no interest because I come across too strong and too straightforward sometimes. It's just, it all depends where somebody is to receive it, right?
Yeah. It's a miracle we're BFFs. Wow. Someday I need to hear this story.
Yeah, I'm great at calling people out. I really am, but I'm not always pleasant to be around because when you don't want to get called out or when you want to avoid being called out on something, I'm the last person you want to speak to.
But that's what we talked about. Like, you have to be in a position to receive. And if you're not, or if you're not a person who can handle the like direct personality, those two things can be in conflict.
Yeah. So, there'll be years that my phone doesn't ring, but it's okay. I mean, like literally, people just can't handle it, but it's okay. I can talk to myself all day long.
Anna apparently she likes it. Receive. Receive. This is how I'm reading it in your voice, Anna. Receive.
All right, world. Have a great day, Tiffany. Thank you so much.
You too, my friend. Always a pleasure.
Share with anybody a website or something, anything. I don't know. whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to know about some HR stuff, I have a clubhouse room too, Saturdays at 2 p.m. EST. So it's called Let's Talk HR. And I do occasionally pop up at the HR office. So I have a branded hashtag with that too. And that's really fun. Otherwise, you can just find me on LinkedIn. I like to play there. So LinkedIn will always be my first love, as I always say.
Anna's awesome. She's laughing out loud.
It is. Laughter is a gift. I'm glad that I can do that with
It
you all.
is, and there's nothing better than laughing at ourselves. So we're good.
Oh yeah, I do that like daily. Probably
I
hour by hour.
I do about a minute. Depends which email I open. Who's, it is
Yeah, when I almost fall down the stairs like daily. I mean, I've really
what it
bad
is. Stairs and I fall down head first.
Be careful out there.
Go down.
Safety first.
All right, guys. Have a great day. Thank you
Bye
so much.
everyone. Thanks, Mike.
All right, how do I end this? Without Kelly, I feel so lost. Oh, wow, I have to end twice. This is strange. This is great.